let's get this setup rolling. We've got some data here from Grok that we're going to be using. Let's make sure that we are live on YouTube and on Twitter/X. X/Twitter, whatever. Yep, looks like we're live. Cool. Information on some of our topics. Wow, we might actually be ahead of the game tonight. Maybe. All right. Let's go ahead and make sure that we get our chat. Okay. Cool deal. We're going to put something up in the chat. I thought I had this already loaded, but apparently not. So let me go ahead and grab this. What is this? What is this? What is this? Here it is. So, all right. Cool. Groovy. We're live. What we're doing here is I'm going to put this up in chat. In the chat, guys, you're going to see that we have a free download code for 47 Furious Tales issue number 1. So you can see the first comic that I ever made. Artist on that is Alexia Veldhausen, and we are going to be working on issue 4 pretty soon. So that's cool. We've got a few topics to get to tonight. I'm hoping you guys are able to hear me okay. If you're having any trouble with audio, let me know. We're going to cover some things about the coming Halloween holiday. Specifically, talk about some things about the local community here that I live in, and the top 10 Halloween costumes for kids according to Grok. I have to admit, some of those were a surprise to me. I'm just going to talk a little bit of things in a positive and uplifting way, and maybe bring a little happiness, a little hope, a little sunshine to everyone's lives. At least that's the hope anyway. So let's see what else we got here. We're also going to be talking about, let me make a note on this because I was going to put this on my other screen, but I did not get it hooked up correctly, so it's not showing. So I have to work on that. I'm using an older monitor that I got from one of my brothers. So that is going to take some work. So we're going to talk about the top 10 Halloween costumes for kids, community stuff, and then we got a few other things. I'm going to ask you guys too for some things about video games. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then, as much as I stay away from political commentary and such, we're going to talk a little bit about the Amazon issue with them potentially. Potentially, I guess is a bad way to put it, with their plans to do away with over 500,000 warehouse jobs. Plus, they've already gotten rid of a lot of their HR department. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And that should get us through this hour. Today is October 26, 2025. I am Sam Quentin, creator and owner of Sinopa Publishing. Lunchbox Warren, what is up, brother? How you doing? For those of you who don't know, Warren is the creator of Sig and Joe. Warren, why don't you put a link into the chat, man, so people can see where they can find your content. definitely check him out. And he is, I'm hoping, are you live streaming again, or are you still on hiatus? We'll see here. Warren, Lunchbox Warren, how you doing, brother? All right. Well, we're seeing if he's still here. Let's go ahead and get to some communication about just some things going on. Obviously, we've got the link tree for Warren. There we go. Cool, guys. Check him out. All right, so Halloween's right around the corner. It's this coming Friday. Kids are going to be all over the neighborhood still, and that's something that I think is a good thing. We're seeing here in Kentucky anyway, people out with their children, walking around in their Halloween costumes. Now, a lot of these really small children, you have to remember, were born during the pandemic years. So Warren is still doing his live stream every Tuesday for his draw stream. That's outstanding. Definitely check it out. I have missed the last several. Sorry about that, Warren. I'll try and get this Tuesdays. I've got so much glare in my glasses. It's ridiculous. Sorry about that, guys. I got to figure out something to do about that. Maybe I need to get some different glasses or change the lighting in here maybe a little bit. So here it is in 2025, and we're seeing a lot of first-time trick-or-treaters. Kids are. We'll give you an idea. Here in Frankfurt, in my area, we are not an affluent neighborhood. I guess is a good way to put it. We have a lot of little apartments that are kind of on the lower price point here in Frankfurt. But the thing about it is, in this particular neighborhood, I've lived in this neighborhood for a little over 8 years now, which is the longest I've ever lived at one single place. I've always moved around a lot ever since I was a kid. But my neighbors have small children, and some of my neighbors have teenagers. But a lot of the young couples in the neighborhood have very young children, 4 or 5, some much smaller than that. But these are kids who were born during the lockdowns, and shortly thereafter. So they are basically the first generation of kids for this strange world we find ourselves in post pandemic. And things are, for want of a better way of putting it, largely getting back to, I guess, normal. Uh, People are putting out Halloween decorations in the neighborhood, and we are seeing people getting their signs ready for trick or treaters welcome and things like that. I went to the grocery store the other day, and then which specifically was one of the Krogers here in Frankfurt, and then braved a trip to Walmart. Walmart's one of my least favorite places to shop right now. Walmart, if you want to sponsor the stream, I'm still going to be honest and say that you guys are one of my least favorite places to shop. So please do better. Okay. Man, Walmart's rough. It is rough here in Frankfurt. And just for the fact that we don't have any cashiers, everything's self-checkout, and they push you into like this little corral type zone. It's crowded. Everyone's kind of like just trying to get through their stuff and get done, and it's no fun. Man, that's a tangent I don't need to get on right now, but you get the idea. I was there and picked up a bag of Halloween candy. Man, it was $23 for one bag of Halloween candy. Absolutely ridiculous. But got stuff I think that the neighborhood kids will like. So transparency on this, a lot of the neighborhood kids come over here, and we'll play with my kids here. My kids will go over and play at their houses too. And so these are children who very often I'm feeding snacks to or whatever on any given day, especially during the summertime when school's out. So I tried to pick things that I knew they would like. 20 something dollars, man. It was nuts. Getting ready for Halloween. And I was looking at the holiday, and I was feeling honestly kind of optimistic. I was feeling kind of upbeat about it. And the reason being is that despite all the absolute chaos that you see online, in the real world, at least here in Frankfurt, Kentucky, anyway, people are people get along. People, know their neighbors. People are, hanging out with each other. We sit out on the porch and talk about different stuff. And my neighbors are very supportive of my work in comics and in role playing games. And um, my next door neighbor, her kids have art prints from Sinopa on their walls, and my neighbors a few doors down, their little toddler has art from Sandra Cole hanging up on his wall. So I mean, a lot of kids in the neighborhood have that. So we've got this fun connection where the kids are doing okay. They're having parents who are looking out for them and neighbors who are looking out for them, and by and large, it's a very peaceful kind of area. So it's really, really nice. Now, we did have someone steal our neighborhood watch sign. That was a couple of years ago, and we've never put it back up. But we still laugh and joke about it because it's the irony of it is just absolutely fantastic. But as we get ready for the Halloween season, there's the state police post here has these holiday trick or treat things that they do, and people line up for a mile and a half, 2 miles to drive their kids through this thing and do their Halloween there. And here we just take and the kids go out and the parents will walk with them, and they'll have little groups, or you'll see a small family with their one or two kids in tow, or maybe a baby in a stroller, and people will just walk around and go and trick or treat their neighbors, and people say hi, and um, it's really a very social exercise for all of us. And I think that in a world where we have so much of our news feeds and our social media feeds are filled with anger and absurdity and things that are seeming to be designed to cause division and fear and even anger amongst our fellow citizens and our neighbors. It is a real relief that I can go out and run into my neighbors at the grocery store, and we can sit there and talk for a few minutes and share our ideas about what we're going to be putting out for the kids for Halloween. That's something that it's a weird example, but that specifically happened this week when I was buying the overly expensive bag of Halloween candy. And we were just talking about what we were going to have out so that the kids in the neighborhood would have an assortment of different candies. And I thought, as I was after I got home and I thought about it, that's a weird little tiny little insignificant thing that adds up in a great pile of everything that makes community. When just a few parents happen to run into each other at the grocery store shopping for Halloween candy, and they're figuring out what to get so that the kids are getting a good variety. And I like that. It feels like there's a little more peace in my tiny corner of the world. Um, and maybe, just maybe, that ability of people to be good neighbors and to, work together can make an impression on the next generation coming up. We had an incident this week where one of my neighbors they had a fire in their kitchen. Not a big deal, but the lady was very, very, very concerned because her kitchen was on fire. And so I called the fire department and got the fire department down there. Her husband was putting out the fire. I didn't realize he was still in the building at the time. She didn't tell me, but got fire department down there and got them in. Everything put out, everything set up for the blowers to blow all the smoke out and everything. And no real damage beyond some superficial cosmetic stuff to the stove top and the oven that caught fire. But it was one of those things where everyone in the building and across the building came out, and people were offering them places to stay if they needed to not sleep in the apartment that night because of the smoke and everything. And as a matter of fact, we all did, really, just to make sure that they had enough places for everyone to be safe and comfortable at, because it was a cold night, and no one needs to have their doors open when it's like 20 degrees outside just to suffer that. That's just no good. So it's a wild thing when you look at the stuff that's cherry picked by the media and the stuff that's cherry picked by social media personalities to highlight uh, these dramatic little scenes where some of them, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discredit them as being insignificant. Some are very, very significant politically, socially, etc. But when that's all you see on your news and on your social media feed, sometimes that can blind you to the everyday kindness and community around you. So I just hope that you guys are wherever you're at are able to enjoy that kind of peace. Now, that isn't to say it just happens, not by any stretch of the imagination. We have had people who have lived in the area who wanted to, and I'm bear with my language on this. We've had people who used to live here in this area who wanted to act the ass and who wanted to who wanted to throw a little mayhem and a little havoc. But you know, this is Kentucky. Um, we don't really play that game very much around here. We have a lot of very kind-hearted, well-armed civilians. And a wise man once said, "Never mistake kindness for weakness." And so those folks who didn't learn to get along usually moved away, just because when people aren't going to put up with your nonsense, they'll usually find some way to encourage you to leave, either by calling the police when you do something illegal and stupid, or if you try to start a fight with someone in the neighborhood, by beating your ass and then calling the police to come get you. So that's there's just a little bit of it's just a little bit of backstory there, I guess. But the fact of the matter is, right now we have a lot of peace and a lot of community joy. And I'm really looking forward not just to Halloween this week, but then to see what things look like during Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year's, because we have seen over the last. I mean, like I said, I've been here 8 years, and it's always been pretty friendly area. But it's grown, I think, more tightly knit, more communal. I think people are really in the same boat that I'm in now, really taking a look around and realizing that things are pretty nice, at least in our neck of the woods. So I hope that you guys are experiencing the same, and if not now, that you soon will be. That was a little bit of a tangent. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and get to one of the things I wanted to talk about was Halloween costumes for kids this year. So I was looking at this, and I looked around the internet a little bit, and then I went to Grok and had the AI go ahead and pull some stuff together. And I have to say that the Grok thing on here matches a lot of what I was seeing, with a couple of exceptions, and I'll go ahead and go through that. So the first rank one costume idea was Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters. Now, I was having this also in the top area, along with the other K-pop Demon Hunter characters, and one of the reasons was its popularity that's gone from Netflix and through the in theater presentation, and then of course the music videos from it that they put on YouTube and things like that. And then I think that's also somewhat affected by the slightly higher population for children, where it's in the United States right now, we have uh, more little girls than we do little boys. And so I think that that's kind of weighing that a little bit, and to good effect for the K-pop Demon Hunter IP, because they occupied the top 3 slots, with Rumi, Zoe, and Mira representing those top 3, and the homemade costumes usually coming in, under $50 pretty easily, and then You've got like some stuff from Spirit Halloween and Amazon from 25 to 40 or whatever. So Rumi, if you're not familiar with K-pop demon hunters, this is the lead girl, the lead singer in this. So you're gonna see kids with like glow in the dark eyes, neon hair clips, um, black tops and cargo pants and stuff like that. So it's gonna be kind of the dark K-pop star theme on that. The Zoe one, um, this one, I think that depending on how small the child is, you're probably just going to see a lot of things with like the um, probably like thrift store finds for this because I think it'll come together a lot, like pink skirts and pants and stuff like that, star stickers, things of that nature. And then for Mira, this is going to look kind of like a kid going to school, hoodies, ripped jeans, maybe some bedazzled little uh, stick on little bedazzles on the face or things like that. Chicken Jockey came in at number 4. I figured this was probably going to be like down around 5 or 6 on my list, but Grok came in at 4 with it. Obviously, riding on the popularity of the Minecraft um, movie. Still, people being very excited about the Chicken Jockey even now. The one that I did not have, one of them that I did not have on my list was a Labubu. Um, the little like horns and wings and such with people putting up their kids for that. I don't think this is going to be a big thing in my experience here locally in Kentucky, but other places, maybe different. If you do see this, I think it's probably going to be for smaller children with their Labubu loving parents dressing up their small kids. Um, I would love to say I get that, but I don't really understand the Labubu fixation. It's basically, for those of you who aren't aware, it's basically the modern day version of Beanie Babies. So just understand that. Number 6, and this was one that I expected for boys. I expected this to be a little higher. Was the boy versions from the K-pop Demon Hunter show. So like the different costumes for the boy band members, things like that. Uh, Elphaba, however, the Green Witch from Wicked. This is the other one I did not have on my list. I don't know that I'll expect to see any of this here locally, just because Wicked, I don't think really did a lot here in this community. Um, just because I just didn't see a lot of people at the theaters when it was presenting here. And then the other thing too is I just didn't hear a lot about it locally. There wasn't like a lot of water cooler conversation about it. Other parents in the area didn't, that I interact with didn't talk about it a lot. So I don't know, but we'll see. Grok has it as probably as the number 7 costume for this year for kids. Basically green face paint and a black dress and a broom. Old already dress clothes, a dress for clothes or things like that. So it's a cheaper costume, certainly, and I think fans of Wicked will definitely enjoy that. I just don't know how many kids are going to want to be the Green Witch from Wicked. I just don't know, because I don't know. I really don't know how many people took their kids to see that. And if you did, let me know, because I'd really love to hear what your experience was. Did the kids like it or no? Now, 8 and 9 on the Grok list were also the K-pop Demon Hunter characters, with 8 being Jinu, one of the boy band members, and then Derpy. um, I had all these rolled up at what Grok had the number 6, but it was like my number 4, I think it was. And then the other thing too, and this is where I had another intersection really with Grok, was that I was looking at Superman costumes. From what I did on my searches, I think Superman is going to be a thing on the streets for Halloween this year. And I think that we're probably also going to see Mr. Fantastic, and then Mr. Terrific. I think that we're going to see some superhero costumes out this year, which will be a nice change of pace. Because lately, the last few years, the only real superhero stuff I've seen out have been Spider-Man and Iron Man. Unless I'm at like a Comic Con. Those are the only places where I really see a lot more. But for Halloween, the last couple of years, those are the only superhero kids I remember. Well, that and Harley Quinn for some of the girls. Uh, and again, we're talking kid stuff here. So there were some honorable mentions that Grok had that were ones that I thought were going to be more prevalent. Because like I said, I didn't expect Labubu to be on the list. I had like the Saja Boys all together as one group. And one of the ones that Grok put in that I thought was going to be, right up in there was Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. I think we're going to see that in a lot of these kids this year. There's some really cool ones that I've seen available on Amazon, some cool costumes for that. And then one I didn't have on my radar at all either was Glinda from Wicked. And it could just be I have a blind spot for that. Maybe the Wicked thing is just not so much in my field of view that I'm missing it. But it's an honorable mention from Grok and wasn't on my listing at all. Now the some things too, and this is like this common communal safety FYI. Guys, if this is your first year taking your kids out for trick or treating and everything, obviously, of course, watch out for any of the food items that you're getting, any of the treat items you're getting. Make sure you're checking those for your children. But a few other things too to keep in mind. If your children have not been allergy tested, be very careful with the face paints that you're using, if any. Definitely test those in small amounts on the kid's skin before applying it vigorously across the face. Like test it on the back of the hand or something, see if there's any type of allergic reaction, just to make sure that you're not, in the emergency room from smearing, white face paint on there. Now, one of the other things that I expected to see a few people bringing their kids out, I would expect to see some, and this is probably more a regional thing. I would expect to see some Ozzy Osbourne costumes and some Ace Frehley costumes. A few other well-regarded musicians who've passed over the last few years, but those two I think are going to be pretty big around here for homemade costumes, particularly in Kentucky. I think we'll see those a lot for those teens who might be out and about, which I look forward to. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And guys, as always, if you have any comments, any questions, any criticisms or concerns, make sure you're going ahead and putting them into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. This is a good segue moment. So we've been doing these live streams for the last few weeks, and they've been doing far better than I expected. We've had some streams that had like 20 people who were watching, and then like a few people pick it up during the week. Some where we had like 5 or 6 watching, then we had like 40 or 50. We're actually seeing a I consider a fairly good number of viewers throughout the week, people who are picking it up outside of the time frame. So if you're watching this after we're live, thank you for doing that. I invite and ask any of you, if you would, please make sure you're liking and commenting. And if you would, please share it around, and let's go ahead and see if we can bring some more cheer to folks. All right. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you guys about outside of community and Halloween stuff was video games. Oh, Lord, video games. So in the last few years, I haven't really had a lot of time to play video games. I played Warframe with a lot of friends of mine. I'm kind of on hiatus for that. When I have some spare time, I might plug in Endless Space 2 or what's another one I've been playing? Endless Space 2, or I can't think of anything else at the moment. There's a couple of space sims that I'll play every once in a while. If you have a good suggestion for a game to check out, please post it. I'm really interested in seeing what people are playing, what they're enjoying, what their recommendations are. And I'd love to hear what you like about those games. So please do comment them in the chat, or if you're watching this after we're live, just post it in the comments. Really look forward to that. All right. And then this next one's probably going to take us a bit. So buckle up, Buttercup, because let's talk about things now. I'm going to precede this by reaffirming that I don't engage in like political commentary. That's not my thing. I was a political science major in college. No one gives a damn about what my political thoughts are. I'm just here to make comics and role-playing games. But this particular topic is going to feel political, but it's really not. It's more of a technological and societal change that we have coming. And you guys who have been watching this have heard me touch on this before in the past, but let me go in and let you guys in on a few things. So Amazon had gone in and laid off several of their HR, the human resources personnel. Okay, this was done earlier this year, and things are kind of continuing in the way where they're putting out a plan to start replacing a lot of warehouse workers with robots within the next 2 years. So we've spoken a lot about AI. For example, I might play around with it, but I don't use it for commercial work at all, period. I look at its applications, and the simple fact of the matter is it's coming for a lot of people's jobs. And it's not something I think we're going to get ahead of in that regard. So my day job as a paralegal, a technician, and a trainer, the paralegal aspect has been under siege by different limited AI search tools to assist with like legal research for a number of years. Now there was a lot of problems with people not understanding that early LLMs and even current LLMs are prone to hallucinations. So attorneys who were relying on that usually got some very unfortunate surprises, like completely fictitious citations. If you don't know what that means, just ignore it. Basically, it refers to listing cases where published opinions from the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court were made. And that's usually considered controlling. But if it's a fictitious citation, if it doesn't exist and you're citing to it, that's a little bit of a problem. Judges don't care for that too much. So, hey, we're citing this authority, but this authority actually isn't real, that kind of thing. I'm not going to say that it's lying to the court, but it is very, very, very misleading until it's caught. And then it's very, very, very problematic and embarrassing for all parties. So I feel that pressure to an extent in my day job, right? I work for the Commonwealth, so it's not impacting me really presently because I'm not doing legal research for the Commonwealth. I'm handling product support and training for our systems. That requires a lot of human interaction that current AI models just aren't capable of. But that will change. We'll probably see it to a point where maybe in the next 5 years, where it can really start to threaten like technical support in that vein for those kind of highly skilled functions. So if you are thinking that AI is not coming for your blue collar job or your white collar job or even your criminal enterprises as AI powered, bots continue to scam people, think again. It's going to be everywhere. But the Amazon thing in the warehouse, they're talking about replacing let's stress this, up to 600,000 workers with robots by the end of 2027. Now, where these robots are coming from, I don't know. There's a lot to that. So we're going to break this down a little bit, and we're going to start it from the thought process of it being a 2 year, it's basically a little more than 2 year process, right? So if you have a robot design now that will work and replace 600,000 people that you want, it's going to take time to manufacture those robots, to deliver those robots, to implement those robots. It's going to take time to migrate your current worker population off of payroll. It's going to take time to adapt your power needs to those processes. So this gets very complicated very quickly. All right. The world we live in is fast approaching a post-globalization state. So in order to see what we're talking about here, let's go back to like the end of World War II, late 1940s, early 1950s, when the United States, after collaborating with the other allies and forming the United Nations, the United States basically took on the role of patrolling the world's oceans with the U.S. Navy, which was the largest, deep blue Navy in the world, and the only one that was really even remotely capable of being up to the task of patrolling the majority of the world's oceans to protect and encourage free commerce between different nations. So that's how you end up with things like transistor and microchip fab facilities in Southeast Asia, complex supply chains that migrate materials to and from different countries back and forth 5 or 6 times through different processes, hyper specialized, localized economies all around the world. Well, the U.S. Navy has, over the last probably 18 years, been in a process of change. So we are moving away from such a large naval force that will be patrolling all the world's oceans. And in point of fact, we really aren't anymore. And so we see that where things flare up around different areas of the world. Well, see, I told you this was going to sound like it was going to touch on political stuff, but just bear with me on this. So as you see that, you get pains that are felt across the entire systems for different material shortages, for different types of labor problems, food insecurity for places that don't actually have the capability to provide all of their own food. I mean, there are a lot of countries in this world that are currently importing more than 50% of their food from other countries. That's a huge national security risk to each of those countries. But more importantly, it's also a huge vulnerability in trade. So if you get people who are interrupting the security of passing through, say, a particular strait or a particular sea or a particular part of the ocean, threatening ships, or if you have pirates who are attacking different ships and causing problems, and yes, piracy has been a problem, and just completely transparency, piracy has been a problem even before the U.S. Navy kind of stepped away from the whole policing the world's oceans role. I mean, even in the 90s, we had a lot of problems with pirates in particular areas. I'll tell you, Somalia being, of course, one of the more well-known, but around Madagascar, certain parts of the Caribbean islands, we're seeing piracy activity with people, attacking yachts and such, until the U.S. Coast Guard showed up and kicked the ever-living crap out of them. So if you ever guys wonder what the Coast Guard was doing, Coast Guard during the 90s saw more combat than most Marine units. I mean, these guys were out there taking names and kicking ass. So hats off to those fellas. But I'll stress that most Marine units, not all Marine units, most Marine units. As we get into this area where we have more and more strain on the supply chains, then our price points on things like microchips and the basic semiconductors that are being used for them, the materials that are used to manufacture those chips, that particular silicon that mostly comes out of the eastern United States. Surprise! I bet a lot of people didn't know that. When you have these things that are put under threat and they have pressures that are increasing costs, It also tends to affect how quickly you can manufacture things. So this goes into where you see supply chain shortages being reported for different automotive manufacturers, whether they're traditional internal combustion engines or electrical vehicles. It's where you see in military supplies. This is one of the reasons why you're seeing problems with producing the F-35. That and its incredibly high demand as an exported fighter aircraft. The whole thing puts a strain on it. So when you turn around and you interject robots replacing humans, reducing labor costs once you've fully basically earned that money back, or you have your break even point and you're entering your profitability on investing in the robot rather than the person, what you have then is an increase in the profitability in the company. This motivates not just that company, but other companies to look into replacing what human labor they can with robotic labor as well. Now, I am not an economist. I've been looking at this from a lot of different viewpoints, from a lot of different papers that were written by economists. I've actually watched a lot of videos about this by people who report to be economists. I have some doubts as to the veracity of that statement from a couple of them. But there is if there's any consensus at all, it's that we don't know what the world is going to look like when we have a vast majority of jobs under threat by being replaced with uh, robot labor. So, Amazon doing this over the course of these first 2 years is going to give us a little bit of a glimpse into what that's like. Keep in mind that when you're building out the Amazon warehouses, they have several things that they have to keep in mind for that. Obviously, one is the cost of the land. Another is the cost of the labor. So when they're hiring in people, they're going to hire people for the absolute lowest wages they can manage to effectuate the best profits that they can find. That's just business, right? Now, when you've got the labor costs, starting to plunge, from 40,000 or 50,000, 60,000, whatever it is in that region for those warehouse workers. And instead, after you've recouped your costs for paying for your robot and your labor costs, while not zero, are certainly much lower because now they're like, hey, your maintenance, your electricity, and maybe instead of paying like $40,000 a year for wages and another 10 for employment tax and everything else that goes into hiring a human, instead maybe you're paying $2,000 or $3,000 for maintenance, for parts, maybe $1,000 or something for power. And then all of a sudden you've got robots that are working, maybe 16 hours a day, replacing $120,000 worth of, or sorry, pardon me, bad math, replacing $80,000 to $100,000 in human labor. And that's quite a bit. And if you can maintain or exceed your previous performance, then all the better. And again, this is not me condoning people losing their jobs. This is just where I see the corporations looking for it. So for me, I've commented on this many times as far as what I would like to do in the future. I would love to be able to get to a point where Sinopa has a warehouse space and we can be producing comics and role-playing games so that we have a steady cadence, getting at least one comic out every month, getting at least one or two role-playing game books out every quarter, other products and such on a regular cadence so that we can, keep entertaining people. And one of the things I look at that is, I want to make sure that our price point is favorable. And the solution I keep landing on is in like warehouse distribution, replacing human people with robot labor. And I've worked in warehouses many, many times in the past. And to tell you the truth, I think it kind of sucks. From my experience, it was very much the drudgery work, repetitive. You're always on hard concrete floors, so your feet are going to be suffering over the long term. Get great boots and all that, and take care of your feet, and they'll wear out, and you're going through a few $100s worth of boots every year. Just not fantastic, right? And so I like the idea of taking and not putting humans in that position. I don't like the fact that it does take and remove that employment opportunity for humans. I don't have a solution for that works well. Because on the one hand, the concept of using the robotic labor is to reduce costs so that we can keep bringing product to people at the lowest price possible, right? Because Henry Ford, a weird person to quote, but Henry Ford famously said something along the lines of, make the best product possible, the highest quality possible, paying the highest wages possible, and selling it at the lowest price possible. And on the one hand, as we see the widespread usage of robotics, well above what we're seeing now, we're talking about like general purpose human robots, like the stuff from Boston Dynamics, the stuff that's coming out with Tesla's Optimus. So many of the other companies, especially a lot of the ones in China, there are developing ones. And then you've got the specialized robots that are deployed in Amazon that are like little skate scooters, and then robotic arms that pick packages and things. As you get these robots that are able to positively identify particular products with a superior artificial intelligence, pack it in a way that protects it. Again, need to have a particularly potent artificial intelligence that understands that. Understanding is the bad word. I'm not sure that we can quantify it as being an understanding of it, but maybe a better way to put it is an artificial intelligence that is capable of mimicking a human's care with handling a particular object. I think that might be a better way of putting it. Then, correctly labeling it, packaging it, that I think is probably the easiest part of that process through barcoding. We've had that capability in manufacturing for a long, long time. And then, of course, shipping. Now, we've known about and seen Amazon in their drone usage and in their delivery systems becoming more and more refined. But even with that, they've had to rely on a lot of outside contractors who come in and work delivery for high volume times, like during the holidays, or when they have particular problems with areas that don't have a lot of labor available. And getting those robots into place will probably do a lot to cut their operating costs. Now, do I expect that if Amazon's able to cut, 600,000 employees over the course of 2 years, which is a absolutely ridiculous amount? I don't know what the average Amazon worker makes. Okay, so let's go ahead and ask. I hate to do this, but we're going to ask the Grok. Okay, so Grok, how much does an Amazon warehouse worker earn per year? All right, so let's see what the AI has to say. Full-time annual salary of about 35 to 38,000, assuming 40 hours per week. Everyone I know who has worked or is working at an Amazon warehouse currently is working well over 40 hours a week. So let's keep this on kind of like the assumption that that's consistent. And we'll just, for simplicity's sake, we'll say $40,000 per year, right? So if they are on average, and again, this is an assumption that could be wholly off, earning $40,000 per year, and we're talking about 600,000 people. That's $24 billion a year in wages that aren't going to humans just from Amazon. That's absolutely staggering. I mean, I hate to keep using the AI, but it's the fastest. I'll actually just use Google's AI on this one. What is the gross domestic product of the Commonwealth of Kentucky? Okay, to put that in context, Kentucky, one of the smaller states in the U.S., gross domestic product estimate for this year, based on figures last reported from June, $293 billion. So if Amazon is going to be removing, say $24 billion in wages, and again, that's across the entirety of this project that they're looking to do, that's a huge savings in revenue. That would basically be, comparing to like Kentucky, it'd be like 1 in 10 people losing their jobs. I mean, just by comparison of revenue, not by comparison of employment type. That's freaking huge. Can you imagine 600,000 people just in that one company being replaced by robots? Now, imagine, if you would, that as the technology continues to evolve, that we start replacing other type of workforce with that. So one of the things I could see being replaced pretty readily would be folks who are stocking shelves in grocery stores, for example. Now, that's a pretty common entry point into people who get into working at these grocery stores, right? You start working the manual part, you work your way up for however long you're going to be there. It's drudge work, but it is work that's done under a time crunch, and it is very heavily guarded by things that rely on barcodes, serial numbers, things that robots handle pretty well to identify shelf locations. And the upside is that you could also have your robot verifying your inventory levels. So I believe that as the technology approaches full feasibility with that capability, and I think that the technology itself will probably be there next year, but I think the ability for the robotics companies who have that technology level, again, I'm thinking particularly Boston Dynamics, Tesla and their Optimus bot. There's a few smaller technological startups that have technology that's every bit as advanced, but who do not have bots that are engineered to be readily manufacturable. I think to be competitive and to be effective, these general purpose robots that will be put into place to replace a lot of human labor will have to be priced under $50,000 a piece. Because if not, then it just makes more sense to hire a human, get through this year, look at next year. Oh, are we in a position to do this yet? No. Well, let's just hire a human. And I think that to that end, we're going to see that there are some industries where robots will take a long time to get in and replace human labor. And I think the first one that comes to mind on that is in the plumbing trade. Robots, generally speaking, do not deal well around large bodies of water, moving water, or other things that can end up getting them very wet. And no matter how well you seal up your robot, if you have a plumbing robot, it's going to get wet. It is going to happen. So I think that while you will see plumbers who will definitely take advantage of having like a robot assistant, I don't think you're going to have plumbers who will be replacing other plumbers with robots. I think you're going to see like robots being used to, hey, go bring me this tool and bring me this particular pipe, and hey, carry this out to the trash while I'm taking care of this, and basically making their workflow more efficient. I don't think that you're going to say, hey, call robot 9000 and they're going to come and rip out your toilet and put a new one in. I don't see that happening for a long, long, long time. I think that for a lot of security functions where that you're not required to actually protect, defend, or interdict, I think that you're going to see robots replacing a lot of security personnel because it will be cheaper. It will be less exposure to liability. And I think that a lot of security companies will see the ability to deploy robots, especially in the early phases of the availability of the technology, to be a very appealing marketing tool. Hey, you don't have to worry about our 70-year-old security guard falling asleep on the job because we have a robot that's 5 months out of the package, working fine, walks around. We charge this much an hour, but you have to let us plug him in for an hour every 3 hours or whatever. And there you go. And I think that you'll see a lot of the security firms who run security operations around manufacturing plants, for example, to keep an eye on the perimeter and to keep an eye on people walking out with parts, stuff like that. I think you'll see. I don't think you'll see them in widespread use for things like shoplifting prevention, because that really, you just need cameras and then maybe one loss prevention human officer to make a judgment call at that point as to how to act, whether you're going to interdict or if you're going to just call the police and have them interdict, whatever the case may be. But for example, for getting back to what I was looking at, putting robots in the warehouse to maintain inventory, to pack and ship packages, and taking that drudge work out of the human experience, I think there's a lot to be said for that. Now, with comics, that's tricky because comics are, by their nature, pretty freaking delicate. So I think that there's a lot of work that would have to be done to make that effective in my case. But if you have, say, for example, people who are working in a parts plant making, I don't know, catalytic converters, right? And they are boxing and crating and shipping stuff to a plant in Bowling Green, Kentucky, or to Columbus, Ohio, or if you've got at the tire plant in Akron or at the Pirelli plant in Nashville, and you are making tires and you need to send so many to Goodyear at this address or something, and you're pulling and packing and loading that up. I think there's a lot to be said with that. The other thing too, I think you'll see the whole thing with Amazon kind of testing the waters on this is, what does it mean to your local tax base? Because let's face it, whenever you have a local business that closes or that lays people off, or that you see a dramatic decrease in the actual labor population there, that hits the local region's finances almost immediately. So what happens in some place like Biloxi, Mississippi, when the Amazon warehouse cuts? I think it's in Biloxi anyway. We'll use that as an example until I can verify it. What happens when the warehouse lays off half of their people and doesn't need to rehire them? What happens when they no longer have to hire seasonal labor to pick up for shortfalls in labor capability along the holiday season? Where is that deficit that deficit effect on the tax base? Where would it be made up from? I think we are looking more and more at a technological change and a cultural change that we are really not yet ready for. And we're going to have to find some inventive solutions. We're going to have to look to people who have not only a firm grounding in our current manufacturing supply chains, have a firm understanding of our current economics, but also people who have a firm understanding of the technologies that are being pressed to these to see how we're going to integrate them into our society and come out the other end better for it. All right. So this is something I'll probably talk about every few weeks. I don't want to beat it to death, but I think it's one of the things that's very important that's going to affect you, me, our neighbors, everybody in the availability for and the opportunities for work and advancement in our economic positions and our abilities to provide for our families. So I'll try to keep a close eye on that and see what we can do. A little bit of housekeeping. The weekend of let me see here. It would be the November 9th show. I am going to pre-record something for that because I will be away from my home office here. So I'll pre-record something and put it up at that time. I hope you'll enjoy it. Folks, that's been an hour. Wherever you are, I hope that you are living your best life. I hope that you're staying hydrated. Make sure you're taking the medications you need to take. Take good care of yourself and those around you. And please remember, in a world where you can choose to be anything, please choose to be kind. And make sure you check out Lunchbox Warren, Sig and Joe. Fantastic comic. I love it. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, Sam Quentin, Sinopa Publishing, right here in Frankfort, Kentucky. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day.